Welcome to today's Queer God Squad. I am Darrell Watkins, the senior minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. It's Monday, August the 26th, 2024.
I am Reverend Dr. Robert Griffin, the executive minister. Faith and religion can be complicated for the LGBTQ plus community. Surveys show that evangelical faith is the justification for the greatest attacks on the LGBTQ plus community.
I am Reverend Kevin Tisdall, the Minister of Education. The Queer God Squad is going to explore our religious community. Let's explore the big news of the day and what it means to you.
This is live, and then we are available on demand. If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform and social media. At Sunshine Cathedral, we're here to tell you that you are God's miracle, not God's mistake.
This is the Sunshine Cathedral perspective. James Baldwin remains a model for queer, black, spiritual, but not religious nonconformists. Born in Harlem in 1924, James Baldwin is known as an author, playwright, public intellectual. He was a Pentecostal teen preacher, but his attraction to men made that a problem, and at 17, he left the church. Though some have noted that passionate cadence of black worship can be detected in his writings. He was part of a downtown Greenwich Village scene before moving to Europe to continue his writing career. He returned to the United States in the early 1960s to be part of the civil rights movement. His novels were revolutionary, depicting queer and biracial relationships and the black experience. His plays gave descriptions of American racism. Baldwin became increasingly outspoken in condemning discrimination against lesbian and gay people. Baldwin also had a profound influence on iconic theologian James H. Cone. Cone wanted to bring the Blackness of Malcolm into harmony with the Christianity of Martin, and he was able to do so by drawing on Baldwin. Baldwin was able to name the experience of black suffering and give that experience back to black folk in a way that allowed them to bear their suffering and engage with it creatively. Cone sought to do the same thing in his theology. The Queer God Squad knows and acknowledges Baldwin's work and his significance in the social justice movement, black liberation, queer liberation, and even spiritual empowerment. I was introduced to Baldwin way late in life. He was not in my school as a kid growing up. But I knew nothing about James Baldwin, not in English class, anything, not even a poem or a writing or a play or even an honorable mention that I recall from my time through 1986 when I graduated from high school. It wasn't until later that I learned about Baldwin and all of his writings and what he contributed really to the world scene. Even having, I was reading somewhere about like he considered going to Europe, although to do more writing, but that was his time as an exile out of the United States because of how bad it was. He's like, it was an exile. I can't live here. I can't be the out me that I am.
A lot of black artists went to Europe.
A lot of them. And so, I mean, he really, I think, found himself differently. Well, let me back up. He found himself in the church. And what I appreciate about it, he didn't let that experience leave or daunt him in any kind of way, but carried it on to his writing. Because if you read his writings and his poems, you can feel that cadence building as he's writing, or in some of his plays, that cadence of a teen preacher building. But what I appreciated most about it is what he contributed to the civil rights movement and word and inspiring words and in speeches and poems, and that he contributed in a way that, kind of right there with Bart Rustin. I'm black, I'm gay, can't be out there, but here I am. But Baldwin stood out in a way that you could not deny who he was. Even seeing him visually or reading his writing, you knew who he was, giving back to his community. And he did it unabashedly and unashamed. He was out. he was queer, he was whatever he needed to be for that movement and time, and has left that legacy still to this day and empowering us with his words and even just looking at him still as an iconic leader. And that he had that influence on James Cone.
Yay.
I remember literally bumping into James Cone at Union Theological Seminary where our senior minister went to seminary, and it's like, oh my God, I'm in royalty. But to realize what Baldwin and Cone were able to do in merging Malcolm and Martin Luther King Jr., and that Cone was willing to allow himself, being that staunch person that he was, to be influenced by James Baldwin. I would have never pictured James Cone initially as being gay friendly or gay anything else, but I think the approach to his theology and his openness and his willingness to merge that piece of the black community into his black liberation theology was a profound thing for me.
And I don't know that Dr. Cone talked a lot about the gayness of Baldwin, but he did do with Baldwin's secular work, sort of what Dolores Williams did with Audre Lorde's work. So Dolores Williams, sort of the mother, James Cone, if you don't know, sort of the father of black theology, like the whole discipline. Well, his counterpart is Dolores Williams. They both taught at the same seminary, mine.
I met both of them.
But she's sort of the mother of womanist theology. And she was influenced by a poet, Audre Lorde, who, P.S., a lesbian. So these two straight people influenced by these queer people, and out of that, a theology emerges. And the womanist critique is that not only do white feminists not represent the black experience, but black theology is male-dominated and doesn't recognize the woman's experience. So womanist is sort of black feminism. And but still, so Dr. Cone has done that. But this shows you the genius and the flexibility of Baldwin. It never occurred to me that Malcolm and Martin could be bridged, could be connected.
It was dead.
and apparently it took a while for Dr. Cone to find a bridge, and Baldwin is it. The sort of radical activist, and then the sort of peaceful, nonviolent activist. Where can they meet? Well, the queer artist is the bridge between them. I love that. I love that so much. Baldwin was completely contextual. He lived in his world and he spoke from his world. And that influences queer theology. That influences feminist theology. That influences black theology. That influences liberation theology. That all these contextual theologies, he's showing, and he's not even a theologian. He left the church at 17. But when you're that authentic, that's spiritual. And that's going to, and the truly spiritual goes places where the dogmatic and doctrinaire can't. And so, yeah, so he's so contextual, speaking from his world and to his world. And because he is so particular, that makes it universal. And that's one of the things Dr. Cone taught, is that the more particular you are, the more universal you are. So if you will teach black theology, that's going to inspire some feminists somewhere. If you will teach queer theology, that's going to inspire someone else. That if you will share your story, it's going to be so authentic and so compelling. It's going to speak to someone else who isn't necessarily in that experience. So whenever we're saying, oh, we've got to do this to be super inclusive. But if you're nothing to anybody, then you're of no use. But if you have a specific purpose and you'll let people know what it is, then people who are looking for that, and it's going to be a diverse group, they're going to come to you to find it because they know where to find it. And so, yes, he was very specific. He was very particular, speaking from and to his world. And long after he's dead, lots of us from a lot of locations are still talking about it.
This is truly a worthy conversation. My recollection of James Baldwin as a younger person, I remember when he came back to the States, he would be interviewed on some of the talk shows, mostly with Dick Cavett. He would have some amazing conversations with him. And a couple of times there were people that were on the panel who would challenge him about some of the things he said. And he was always able to explain in layperson's terms what he was talking about pain, about suffering, about his life in the context of their life. And he was able to explain to them that you can't fully understand me because you have never lived through some of the crap that I have lived through. So on his 100th birthday, I remember reading a blurb from him, and I'm just going to paraphrase it because he said, I love America. I love this country more than any place on the face of the planet, which gives me the right to criticize it, to bring it to a better place. And I think that for me, that just distills down what James Baldwin was all about.
People criticized Dr. Cohn sometimes because he, and this is not a popular view, and it's not necessarily one that I share, but he believed in redemptive suffering. Not he believed in being able to find power from your pain, and so did Baldwin. I think that's one of the things that attracted it to him. That these people did not deny their pain. In fact, they took power from it, and that theology of being able to of finding redemption in your suffering is what led to the cross and the lynching tree. Cohn's. I almost said seminal work, but all of his works were seminal work. All of his works were, the standard by which you judge all of the works. But that they gave meaning to suffering by saying, from this is where I found my power to react against it. This is how I react against the oppressor. This is how I try to change systems of oppression. It's from the strength and the wisdom I gained from the suffering of being in the system. Now, some people push back about that, and I don't know that I'm smart enough to take sides on the matter, but it was distinctive, and anything that causes people a lot of angst, I sometimes think probably has some good merit to it. So that, but that he did find redemption or power or purpose in the suffering of the Black experience.
And and Cohn's,
they both did.
Cohn's Arkansas, right? Was he?
He's from Arkansas.
Cohn's Arkansas, and you have James Baldwin up in New York, Harlem, and just think about the lenses from which they wrote. Where Cohn's is having to own that southern.
I don't think he was Harlem. He seemed like all those Harlem Renaissance intellectuals.
Yeah.
I think he was from downtown.
Anyway, New York, Arkansas, New York, Arkansas. But just from those, but from those lenses by which they wrote because of life experiences and the things that they had to suffer differently, but it was in the suffering that they could write about and come together. And I think that's where Combs gets to his healing point, his redemptive point. So,
urban and rural, and that's sort of the same thing with Martin and
Malcolm.
Yeah.
So you get those things to pull together, and then you throw in Dolores Williams, who I think kind of butted with Combs on some of that stuff. So
she did.
That's what I love about it. So that's why if you can understand and appreciate the systems of theology, you can understand how all these other theologies inform the other, and it really doesn't leave anyone out. There's something there for everyone, but it's beyond just reading a Bible or one Bible. It's beyond just reading one commentary. You got to be informed by all these different disciplines and understandings to appreciate a James Baldwin. Because if you don't, you just come through it not to a tunnel vision and like, oh, no. But I think what Baldwin has always done in his writing was get outside of who he was, or invited us to get outside of who we are to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, and he was writing in the 50s and 60s. I mean, so he covers decades, and he does show something that I am passionate about, the sacredness of artistic expression and experience. Poetry, novels, short stories, plays, film, songs, that these things have sacred value, or they certainly can be employed in sacred business. And so that this artist is the bridge between theologians and activists, and it shows the power of the arts. If gun to my head, you have to choose between the arts and theology, I'm going with the arts because good, sometimes better theology is coming out of that. The arts can expose theology, but theology sometimes tries to crush the arts. So if I got to choose, I'm going with the arts.
And I think Baldwin is clearly one of those people you can sit on the front porch with and have a glass of sweet tea and just listen to him
I feel like
talk.
it'd be white wine.
Well, it is the house wine of the South.
Oh, well, good. No, he's a queer figure, a black figure, an intellectual figure. I mean, wherever you're coming from, Baldwin ticks the box.
I'll meet you.
And and I'm glad that Dr. Cohn sort of brought him into the theological academy because I think his insights belong there, and now they're there. Well, that's today with the Queer God Squad. We want to thank you for joining us. We're here daily at 3 p.m. to have some fun and to discuss what our LGBTQ plus community is talking about.
Sunshine Cathedral is the world's largest progressive queer church. Progressive, queer, and God are words that naturally should go together. And we are all in this together. Remember that.
You are God's miracle, not God's mistake. Until the next time, we are the Queer God Squad. Goodbye.